We're going to bring on our guest right now, but before I do, again, this podcast is our crown jewel, and it's supported by listeners like you guys. And so you can go to cscf.space/support and go ahead and click that donate button. It really helps us out a lot. And like and subscribe. And you got a big tax deduction, and it makes a huge difference for us. So at that point, let me introduce our guest. We start by asking the question, and actually Sean asked this morning on LinkedIn. He says, what does it take to turn ambitious space technology into a viable commercial opportunity? Well, our guest tonight is Joshua Ahmed, the founder of Real Engineers, name of the company, to discuss that company and the authentication services it provides to help entrepreneurs identify and verify qualified engineering talent. What did you call it, Michael? I think you called it.
I called it GitHub for hard tech. So I'll let actually Joshua tell that because he's the one who told me that. So hey, Joshua, how's things?
Welcome to the program.
Hi there, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Okay.
Things are good, and that's the vision for my company, is to ultimately be a GitHub-like platform for hard tech. So, and when I mean hard tech, I mean like all the engineering disciplines that don't do coding. Like a mechanical engineer, for example, their main job isn't going to be in front of a computer writing lines of code. They're going to be designing a part that goes into a spacecraft or almost anything when you take a look around. So a way for them to have GitHub-like capabilities and have all their stuff in one place.
Okay. Let's start. Give me 1 minute, just your background, your origin story. Yeah. How did you get to this place? Who are you? And also, what got you up that one morning that said, this is the thing I've got to do?
Yeah, the second part's a little longer story. So my name is Joshua Ahmed. The boring stuff, I have a bachelor's in mechatronics from University of California, Merced, a master's in systems engineering from SMU in Dallas, Texas. But the fun stuff is my main career. After 5 years, I worked for Lockheed Martin. I worked for the F-35 program. I did something called mission data engineering, which is like sensor fusion. How does the F-35 make sense of the world and make decisions in combat situations? Because ultimately, the F-35 is a robot with a pilot doing the final things, and that's really what makes it amazing. And so I did a lot of cool radar stuff. That was my main career for about 5 years. And then I moved here to Seattle, and I did military satellites, very similar in work, but for Boeing Defense and Space. And I did that for about 2 years, when at the end of it is when I had this idea and I decided to pursue it fully. As far as what got me into this was, it's a bit of a longer story, but it's really how the discrepancy between how it is to make sense of a software engineer and make sense of a non-software engineer. And when I first really helped with hiring, I had just gotten promoted. I remember, before a software engineer ever shakes my hand, I can figure out all these sorts of ways. GitHub being my personal favorite, but there's so many others like Kaggle, HackerRank, Carrot, and all these guys, where a software engineer says, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's proof. Right. And I haven't even got
documents. Here's the images. Here's the code I wrote,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And here's all the way and I don't have to take their word for it. For mechanical engineers, and especially in my case, for RF engineers, there was no equivalent. At best, someone could maybe make a portfolio if they took their time to do it. But even then, like the problem with mechanical engineers and all the other hard tech stuff, it takes a long time to make sense of it and really arrive to a conclusion that's good. So even if someone did take the extra step, it's still not reasonable to use that information in any practical sense. And that discrepancy led to something that's a much longer story that I was like, this is total nonsense. I can't believe, how come software people have this and we don't? And that was like the discrepancy that really made me wake up in the morning. It's like, maybe I can do something about
it. You're not just looking at space, though. You're doing aerospace, drones, robotics. You've got a whole set of hard engineering, real world product out there. So first of all, not everybody on this call is going to know what GitHub is. So you have to start there when you make this comparison. So what does GitHub do that makes them useful? And then what are you veering off?
So GitHub primarily for software engineers. Its main service, though, is actually providing configuration management and how to manage your code, make edits, and keep it all nice and organized. That's the main value of GitHub to software engineers. It's called configuration control. But that's actually not the main part of my product right now, though I will hope to get there as my product continues to evolve. Right now, I'm very focused on the other values that GitHub really provides, which is a center place for your actual code. You don't upload your resume to GitHub, right? And it has all nice and neatly organized, where someone who doesn't know you can come in and really check out what you've done, right? And it's standardized and it's clear, and and that's the part of GitHub that I'm really focused on today. And then we'll get to the configuration management stuff in the future. And so in a similar way, what my product does from that aspect is allows a hard tech engineer, and you're right, I really hope to expand to everybody that GitHub doesn't really apply to.
Right.
All those sorts of engineers. And the best, broadest term, I call them hardware engineers. My co-founder calls them physics-based engineers. But really just ask yourself, if this engineer is building something you can physically touch, like a satellite, for example, it's still something you could technically touch, right? My product applies to them. And it allows for them to really upload all their work that is shareable or right down to that line and keep it in a standardized form. And then and this is where the only part AI comes in. It allows an employer to make sense of that and go, oh, wow, that was really cool. That's actually really relevant to what I'm doing, even though none of the keywords match, giving that engineer a better way to prove himself and an employer a better way to dissect that information without spending their expensive time, right?